Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. Stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. Hello, PR Maven Nation. Welcome to another episode of the PR Maven Podcast. I'm very excited to have my special guest today, Dr. Patti Talbot. Welcome, Patti.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Nancy.
Yeah, well, I was on your podcast a few weeks ago, and I'm really happy that you were able to reciprocate and come on mine too.
Me too. That was a great conversation.
Yeah, we did. We had a really great conversation. So the PR Maven podcast, this is episode 248. So we're inching closer to 250 episodes. And it's presented by Marshall Communications, which is creator of the 65-step PR Maven Marshall Plan process, which is a strategic planning process for PR. Those of you new to the show, I'm Nancy Marshall, your host, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. And I'm delighted to have Dr. Patti Talbot today, who is from Blue Roads Education Group. And Patti is founder and CEO of Blue Roads Education Group, where she cultivates the work of social changemakers who have a longing to create a more equitable, inclusive, and healthful world for everyone by helping them develop the specific skills and confidence needed to take courageous action for change. As a public educator in pre-K through graduate education for, I can't believe this, for more than 35 years. Patti's been part of a growth journey for people of all ages and stages of life. By focusing on the four big ideas inherent in the company mantra, homegrown solutions for a patchwork world, she now helps clients honor their roots and transform the way they show up and work with diverse others with the courage needed to transcend their roles as good citizens to become global change makers working for equity and justice for all. So, Patti, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Okay, well, you've heard all my education background, and I actually need to update that because it's now over 40 years I've been in education. So I've been doing this Blue Roads education thing for now almost 6 years, and that was after a 36-year career in public education at all the levels, from I was an elementary school teacher and an elementary principal and guidance counselor, and then I went to central office for a year before I went to the university and was working to prepare teachers and school leaders, and all of that work I just loved. But I did retire. I hate that word retirement. It doesn't seem to resonate for me, but I did retire almost 6 years ago now and started Blue Roads with the goal of supporting educators in global education, building their own global competencies so they could do the same for their students. And then we had a pandemic.
Yeah.
And so the last thing schools needed was Patti Talbot coming in and telling them they needed to do something a little bit different. So I decided to change my framing a little bit and go out and work with leaders from all kinds of sectors, not only in education. And it's been a labor of love for me that I've been doing ever since. My work is all about celebrating and supporting and cultivating changemakers. So it's my joy and privilege to work with changemakers like you, Nancy.
Well, thank you, Patti. I mean, your energy is so contagious. I just loved meeting you. We met at Heroic Public Speaking, and I'm so glad that we were able to make a connection there.
Yeah, me too. Likewise, I just loved your energy and your message about being an extrovert. and I realize I do have a lot of energy, but I'm very much not an extrovert.
Oh,
I still relate to you.
I wouldn't know that, but so tell us about your podcast. You have a really interesting format that I loved being part of.
Yeah. Well, my podcast is called On Your Own Terms, and I feature women change makers because, as I said, one of my main goals with Blue Roads is to celebrate change makers. So I consider it a joy and a privilege to sit down with change makers and celebrate their work, learn about their work. I have a framework that I use as my regular format for the interview. So my people know what to expect when they come. And I have a slogan for my business, Homegrown Solutions for a Patchwork World, which is about homegrown change maker and world change maker and the interplay between those things, because everything is that's local is global and everything that's global is local. So I use that framework for getting into the conversation about the change makers I invite on the show. And I have just loved it because I always say to my guests, my goal here is to celebrate you and your work as a change maker. And my selfish goal is also to prove my framework because I use those questions over and over again. And every story is unique, even though the questions are the same, because every change maker that sits down across from me is unique and is really changing the world on their own terms. And I love that because there isn't a strict formula for being a change maker, but there are skills and attributes and dispositions that all change makers have in common. So I'm asking people like you and all the change makers I've had the privilege of talking to sit down with me and celebrate them and prove my theory. And to be working beautifully. Yes.
But I also like the way you do the recording. And then when you do the launch of the episode, you do a live gathering and you have your listeners on there live. So that was an
Oh, that's
interesting format, I thought.
Yeah, that's right. And that's actually something that I adopted from Win Win Women. The Win Win Women Multimedia Network is where the show first premieres. It does go out in a lot of other ways too, but they're the organization that premieres the show every week at Friday at noon Eastern time. And so that was their idea for having a live show and then allowing people to show up. And the woman Paula Fellingham that started that network has a big inspiration and goals to have change making women, no matter what their specialty is, on the air 24 hours a day around the planet, so that women can show up and get inspiration and then have live support. So there are lots of different channels on there, and mine is on the Passion and Purpose channel.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so yeah, so that's their format, but it's one that I've just loved because we have this beautiful little community that's growing, and a lot of them come back week after week because they're so inspired by the guests.
Yeah, I made some really meaningful connections with some women that I've stayed in touch with ever since then. So
Yeah,
that was
I
great.
love that. Yeah.
And when did you start the podcast and what was your initial motivation to start it?
Yeah. Well, I actually started it outside before the Win Win Women Network launched. I started it in the winter of 2019, I believe.
Okay.
And my original motivation was to celebrate change makers. I had that original motivation to celebrate change makers and also to show to showcase my mission. And so I did that, but I did it kind of sporadically, just when I met somebody, and then I would just do it whenever. And it just didn't have the structure or the regularity. So one of the many things that Win Win Women has done for me is created that discipline of regularity, because I have a responsibility to show up at noon Eastern time every single Friday. And so it started more haphazardly, but I was fortunate to be one of the founding members of that network. So my Win Win Women version of the show started in November of 21, I think now. Yes, because it's been a little more than a year and a half. We've been going a show every single week.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always think that building a community around your podcast is really critical. That's kind of why I created PR Maven Nation around my
Yes, I
podcast.
love it.
Yeah. It's always good to have raving fans, people that
Yes.
are
Oh, yeah.
loyal and will also spread the word about a podcast to others.
Absolutely.
So you and I met at Heroic Public Speaking in Lambertville, New Jersey. And have you been doing public speaking, and what do you speak about?
Yes. Well, I speak about changemakers, of course. That's my passion and my obsession, some people might say. And the focus of my speech is this big idea that you do not have to be any kind of a hero or special person to be a change maker. People are not automatically change makers. You're not a change maker just because you were born, even though, certainly we have an impact on the earth, but it takes more than that. But people are, you have to work at it. But I start with Wonder Woman as an in because so many of us women, especially, just love Wonder Woman. But it's really not about Wonder Woman. It's about how you don't have to be like Wonder Woman to be a change maker. So I'm out there spreading the word every place I can about what are the actual skills and dispositions does it take to show up and make a difference. And yes, I've been doing some speaking. Um, Finding my audience, figuring out where it really resonates has been a journey for me because what I've discovered is, I've spoken from everything from Rotary clubs to women's organizations to bigger Chamber of Commerce kind of events. I even spoke at a cybersecurity conference on a big
Wow.
stage with big lights, which was one of our HPS colleagues gave me that opportunity. And what I have found is my message, starting with Wonder Woman, really resonates with a younger audience. So I'm now kind of thinking about working with grandmothers and granddaughters,
Oh, cool.
specifically because the grandmothers are the ones that are showing up. They have been the change makers and they're making transitions in their lives, and they want to pass the baton, so to speak, to their granddaughters. And the granddaughters are ones who really, they're optimistic and ready and fired up and ready to go out there and make a difference. And they resonate with Wonder Woman, and they kind of seem to just love the big revelation that, oh, I don't actually have to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So that's what's been happening, and I love to get out and speak about it. And I'm now just kind of figuring out how do I get grandmothers and granddaughters in the same room so they
Right.
can share this message and experience, and kind of change the world hand in hand.
Yeah, I love that
Yeah,
idea.
yeah, yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah, that's really unique and compelling.
Yeah, I'm excited about how it's taken off.
Yeah. Well, we're
Yeah.
going to take a short break now, but we'll be back with more questions for Dr. Patti Talbot.
Sprague and Curtis is a locally owned real estate company. We're primarily focused in central Maine. I got excited about Nancy's book because she's so well known in the area for her marketing and branding techniques, and we're always looking to expand and learn and grow. And so a lot of us here at the office decided that we wanted to read her book and learn some new techniques.
It benefits Sprague and Curtis to have a large brand and audience because there can often be multiple years between transactions with clients. So it's important to network with them and stay in touch with them in those in-between periods. And this book really helped us learn some techniques and methods to continue to do that. We organized a small book group with Nancy's book with brokers in our office this winter to share information and remind ourselves how important it is to always be working on our network and continually reaching out to our customers.
Platforms like social media are important in expanding your business, but equally as important are handwritten notes, cards, letters. She inspired me to send her a note of appreciation, just thanking her for the book and her insight. In reading Nancy's book, I was excited to look to continue to grow our brand and our audience. I think she does a great job of motivating us.
Nancy's book really helped me learn a few things in marketing and branding and how important it is to stay on top of reaching out to clients periodically, staying top of mind, providing useful information, and really telling our story as a company.
Welcome back. And we're here with Dr. Patti Talbot. Patti, I'm so happy that you're here and we're having this wonderful conversation about change makers. What is your definition of a change maker and what is your hope with change makers?
I love this question because I did a lot of research on what it means to be a change maker, and I settled on one of my favorite definitions. Comes out of the University of Northampton in the United Kingdom, but I've tweaked it a little bit. Their definition of a change maker is anyone who sees a social or environmental problem and has the skills and the grit to do something about it. Now, I've tweaked that a little bit because what I certainly know is no change maker actually acts alone. So I've changed it to go this way. A change maker is someone who sees a social or environmental problem and has the skills and the grit to work with others to do something about it. And that work with others in partnership is pretty critical to what it means to be a change maker. And you asked me a second question. And what was the second question?
What is your hope with Changemakers?
Oh, great. My hope is, well, I kind of started with this because as I was passionate about global education when I was a college professor, I got really interested in working with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that replaced the old Millennial Development Goals back in 2015. And through this collaborative process, they, representatives from the countries, all the member countries from around the world came together and outlined these goals with a target date of the year 2030. Now that's getting pretty close. And so really my motivation is making sure that people know about the Sustainable Development Goals, because we can't solve problems we don't know about. And a lot of times when I talk to audiences, people go, I don't know what that's all about. Never heard of it. That's a problem. If we don't know, we can't do anything. And the second thing is just to help people develop the skills they need to actually find their own way of doing something to relate to those goals. So as you know, when we interviewed you, every person on my show, I relate their work directly to the goals as well as the skills of change makers. And it's not hard to do. Anybody that's showing up and showing the world what they stand for and what they're all about really is doing something that change makers do, and really is somehow directly doing work related to the goals. So that's what it's all about for me.
Yeah. Well, I think one aspect of your podcast and your approach is through storytelling. And of course, in PR, telling stories is so compelling because that makes someone relatable, if you and memorable. And it also gives other people who I would call brand ambassadors something, like Bonnie Raitt says, let's give them something to talk about, that song.
Absolutely. Yeah, so, I love that song.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
So a story is a wonderful mechanism for social change, I think, because then people can relay a story and it puts a human face on an issue also. And again, in PR, that's something that we're always striving to do is do storytelling, typically through the media, but also through social media. So, and now like content marketing is a big theme in PR. So creating content that can be shared online, either through a website or social media or other means. So I think you're doing all of these things, and I commend you for that.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm working and I'm learning all the time from people like you what it takes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things, because I've been doing PR for as long as you've been in the education business, and I think it's changing. Every day you can learn something new. Like, the techniques that I used in the 80s when I was doing PR before there was an internet, and I just had a typewriter and I would type press releases and put them in an envelope and send them in the mail. And also
wow.
I did publicity for a ski resort, Sugarloaf, where we would go and videotape the ski races that happened, or if there's a big snowstorm, we would do video of it and then make duplicates of the video. And I would actually get in my car and drive to 6 different TV stations and hand them the video. Or if there was a big storm, we would put video on an airplane and send it by air to the Weather Channel in Atlanta, Georgia. So they would show it on the air, but we would have to fly it. Well, I feel like, you would never even know that's the same profession because now the internet has changed so much. But I think one of the things that I that keeps me going and keeps me engaged is the change, like, and staying on top of the changes in technology and discovering, even podcasting. We didn't have podcasting 10 years ago, but look at us now.
Right.
You and I are stars of podcasting. Just ask us, we'll tell you. So
Very true.
for me, like staying on top of the changes is like something I wake up and want to do every single day. And the thing that I dread the most, to be honest, is having somebody say, "Oh, you're too old to know how to do this stuff," and I'll be like, "I'll show you."
Yeah,
Don't you say that to Nancy Marshall? I'll show you.
No way. Unstoppable.
So, Patti, what is a book? Oh, I know. What are some success stories that you can share about change makers you've worked with?
Oh, well, I have so many because every person that comes on my show is invited because they are a change maker. But one of the things that, as I read that question, I thought, oh, one of the things that I'm really proud of, I've done a lot of things, change maker circles and courses on anti-racism and those kinds of things. And now I've finished my women's empowerment coaches certification with an organization called One of Many. So I'm having great fun seeing the growth of women who are coming and maybe they're not feeling very confident and they certainly don't identify themselves as change makers, be able to step fully into their power and go out into the world and feel like their voice matters and they have something to share. So that's the biggest success of all. But I will say that I have one habit that I love and I consider it a great success, although it's not a financial success. And that is that I turn all my clients into friends because they inspire me so much. And I have this great wonderful opportunity in my life at this stage of my life to choose who I hang out with. And I choose to hang out with Changemakers because they inspire me and, give me energy and give me that reason to get up in the morning. So I have this beautiful growing community of Changemakers that are, here for each other and here for me and here for the world. And to me, that's the biggest success of all. And the others, I even though I've been at this for going on 6 years, I really consider myself at the very beginning of turning it into a business. I've been insulted a couple of times. People have said, "Is it a business or is it a hobby or is it a jobby hobby?"
Oh, a jobby hobby.
And that's the one that just really gets my goat. So,
yeah.
So I'm working actively on making sure that it is a business. And even though I turn my clients into my friends, that I also make sure that people know in order for us to keep spreading the word and cultivate change makers around us, it needs to be a viable business.
That's right.
And so I'm, ready to be hired to get out and spread the word through speaking. And I'm working on a book. I know you've got a book out there, and I'm working on a book, that helps people know you don't have to be somebody special to be a change maker. You just have to show the world what you stand for. And we have a process to help people do that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, and there's nothing wrong with being friends with your clients. I mean, I'm very good friends with a lot of, or all my clients actually. So, so you can be friends and still have a business.
But you got to keep them paying you.
Yeah, that's true. That is important. Patti, is there a book, a podcast, or an app that has been helpful to you in your business, and why?
Yes, I've actually just recently gotten onto one that I love. It features Sarah Price, who is based in the UK, and it's called Actually Making a Difference. And it's about socially driven businesses, things that were created for a social mission, and how to help them actually be successful, viable business, because that's a journey that I'm on. So I'm listening to that Actually podcast just kind of compulsively chance I get. And I listen to a lot of them.
Yeah, good.
But that's one of my favorite right now.
I'll have to check that one out. I look forward to that. And how can people get in touch with you, Patti, if they want to become your friend and or your client too?
Now, I am on LinkedIn as Patti Talbot. I also have a business page there, Blue Roads Education. You can find me most places as Patti, Patti Talbot, and Blue Roads Education. Also doing business as Changemaker U, I might mention, Changemaker YOU, a play on Changemaker U, and also Changemaker University, because I have a whole learning system around becoming a change maker. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and email me at Patti, Patti, at blueroadseducation.org. And my website is blueroadseducation.org. So
Awesome.
I'd love to hear from your audience, and we can be friends and change makers together. And I do have some great programs for you too.
You know, I'm thinking of the governor of Maine, Janet Mills is our governor. We have a wonderful woman governor, and she's a grandmother and she's a change maker. So I think I am going to introduce you to her. And
I love that.
Yeah, because she has all these granddaughters and they're all powerhouses. And
oh, that's fantastic.
that would be
I would love that.
Yeah, to connect that grandmother granddaughter theme for you.
Thank you. I love it.
Well, so Patti, this has been so great. And I look forward to keeping the conversation going. And I want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Nancy. It's been such a joy, as always, to be in your presence. Thank you.
And I hope everyone has a great day in PR Maven Nation. Thanks for listening to this episode of the PR Maven podcast. I invite you to share a review of the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation on Facebook. It's free to join, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you use an Alexa device, use your Alexa app to search the skills and games section to find and enable the PR Maven podcast flash briefing. This will give you access to exclusive content and more PR and marketing advice. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.